Browns insider drops bombshell. Kevin Stefanski never gave Shedeur Sanders a real shot at QB1. By Orko Cab, June 29, 2025. When the Cleveland Browns drafted Shedeur Sanders in the 5th round of the 2025 NFL Draft, fans immediately began speculating. Could the son of Hall of Famer Deion Sanders be the next big surprise in the league? Was Cleveland about to witness a QB battle royale, one fueled by fresh energy, elite college stats, and iconic lineage? The excitement felt real. But now, weeks into OTAs and minicamp, that hope is being stripped away piece by piece. And according to multiple insiders and former NFL players, it wasn't a fair fight from the start. In a candid and explosive appearance on Nightcap with Darren Waller, former Bengals wideout TJ Houshmandzadeh said what many Browns fans feared and few dared to say out loud. Shedeur Sanders, despite a stunning camp performance, never truly stood a chance in Cleveland. Not under Kevin Stefanski. I was told by somebody that's in the building, that ain't a player, Houshmandzadeh said. It's really coming down to Kenny Pickett or Dillon Gabriel. Not Shedeur Sanders. Not even seasoned veteran Joe Flacco. According to the source Housh referenced, someone inside the organization, Stefanski had already made up his mind. The Browns had a plan, and Sanders wasn't part of it. The myth of competition shattered. NFL training camps are often marketed as the land of open competition. Coaches talk about earning your reps, building trust, and letting the tape speak. But when former players, insiders, and media veterans begin connecting the dots, a very different narrative emerges in Cleveland. Shedeur Sanders, despite being the most efficient quarterback in minicamp, posting a 77.4% completion rate and throwing some of the sharpest balls in tight window coverage, seemed to be invisible to the coaching staff's long-term vision. Instead, the Browns brought in Kenny Pickett, the former Steelers starter who's still looking to reclaim the promise that made him a first-round pick. Then they signed Joe Flacco as a veteran insurance policy. Then, during the draft, they selected Dillon Gabriel, a raw, high-upside quarterback from Oklahoma, before finally grabbing Sanders late. Jay Crawford and Garrett Bush of the Ultimate Cleveland Sports show pulled no punches while analyzing the sequence of events. The first guy they brought in was Kenny Pickett, Crawford noted. Then they backfilled with Joe Flacco. When they were in the draft and they had a chance to bring in a quarterback, the first guy they went with was Dillon Gabriel, and they backfilled with Shedeur Sanders. The translation? Stefanski and the Browns brass had a mental depth chart drawn long before players arrived at camp. And Shedeur? He was always penciled in at the bottom. We'll see meant we've decided. For all the coach speak about competition and opportunity, actions often speak louder than press conference soundbites. And the Browns' actions tell a very specific story. Even before the draft, Cleveland reached out to Kenny Pickett, then Joe Flacco, and only after selecting Dillon Gabriel, another quarterback with questions but high developmental potential, did the Browns reach for Sanders, despite his stellar numbers and high football IQ from Colorado. That order of operations was no accident. It was a carefully constructed priority list. A pre-written script dressed up as open evaluation. Crawford was blunt. Kenny Pickett and Dillon Gabriel were higher on their mental draft chart. The Browns have already told us who amongst the four they liked the most. Deontay Johnson adds fuel to the fire. As if more confirmation was needed, Browns wide receiver Deontay Johnson added clarity during his appearance on Sports and Suits. I think they are going to roll with Kenny for right now. That wasn't a slip of the tongue. That wasn't hedged with phrases like, we'll see how camp goes, or the competition is fierce. It was direct, and it signaled one thing. The quarterback plan in Cleveland is already in motion. Kenny Pickett is QB1. Dillon Gabriel is the developmental project. Joe Flacco is the veteran fallback. And Shedeur Sanders? The flash in the pan. Mark Schlereth sounds the alarm. Nothing is guaranteed. Former NFL guard and current analyst Mark Schlereth didn't mince words in his recent commentary about Shedeur Sanders' path. Nothing is guaranteed for you, Schlereth warned. At some point, you gotta understand. What Schlereth highlighted is the harsh reality of NFL politics. Draft position, timing, and internal preference often outweigh performance. And Stefanski has a clear preference, one that does not seem to include Deion Sanders' son. It's not just about throws or reads. It's about being part of the system, being chosen before the first snap is ever taken. And that's a system Shedeur Sanders was never really invited into. A front office power move. Ogbo cut sends a message. As if on cue, the Browns made another eyebrow-raising move that illustrated the team's cold, calculated approach to roster building. They released Ogbo Okoronkwo, the high-motor defensive end they signed last year on a 3-year, $19 million deal. Ogbo had underperformed slightly in 2023 after a pectoral injury, but was still expected to be a key rotational piece behind Myles Garrett. Not anymore. The Browns cut him with zero guaranteed money left on his deal. No drama, no delay, just a social post from Ogbo. Love to the land. In his place, kicker Andre Scmyt, a UFL standout with a cannon for a leg. Yes, a kicker. The Browns chose a special teams weapon over a former starter and over financial baggage. Scmyt, with his 61.5-yard kickoff average and history-making run at Syracuse, might become the next leg of Cleveland's culture shift. Cut emotion, keep power. The culture shift, Cleveland isn't dreaming, it's calculating. From Shedeur's sidelining to Ogbo's swift release, it's clear the 2025 Cleveland Browns aren't in the mood for sentimentality. They aren't interested in YouTube narratives or public opinion. They're hunting precision. And Kevin Stefanski, often reserved in his demeanor, is sending a clear message. This is his team, and it will run the way he designs it. If that means cutting a recently signed $19 million man, so be it. If that means ignoring the fanfare around a Sanders, so be it. If that means building quietly around Kenny Pickett and Dylan Gabriel, two QBs that haven't proven themselves in the NFL over someone like Shedeur with everything to prove, so be it. Sanders' dilemma: stay quiet or speak out. What happens next for Shedeur Sanders could define his early NFL narrative. Does he quietly grind, wait for an injury or a slump, and shine when called? Or does he push back, subtly or loudly, against a system that seems to be dismissing him? There are already murmurs that Deion Sanders isn't thrilled with how his son's been handled. But Coach Prime has been mostly silent. That could change if Shedeur gets waived or buried on the practice squad. The pressure is real, but so is the opportunity. Camp isn't over, and football has a funny way of reshuffling rosters when expectations meet reality. The final word: depth chart dressed as destiny. TJ Houshmandzadeh's comment wasn't just gossip, it was a revelation. It confirmed what insiders suspected and what fans feared. Shedeur Sanders was never truly in the mix. He was filler, a narrative piece, a late-round flyer that made for good headlines. Now, he's trying to climb a depth chart that was set before he landed in Cleveland. And unless something radical shifts, he'll need to break in the hard way by tearing down doors no one is opening for him. For Shedeur Sanders, the message is simple. They didn't plan for you, so make them regret it.